Whenever a client comes in for seeking treatment for leg veins, have a look at the vessels, because we can only treat with the laser vessels less than 3 millimetres in diameter. So have a look at them. Ideally, very treatable vessels are superficial, small little vessels. They can be quite squiggly. Every presentation is different. Leg veins are one of probably the more complex things that we treat in terms of predictability of correct settings and things. So just explain to the client that they're likely to need a few separate sessions, because we can't double treat over a vessel at the time of treatment. So we need to perform our treatment, assessing every shot as we go and tweaking the settings that we're using accordingly. Then we allow a good few weeks, sort of six to 8 weeks or so, for clearance. Then we have them come back in and review and retreat as needed. It's not an exact science with leg vessels, because every single vessel is so different in terms of how much blood they're containing, how big they are, and also how deep they are within the skin, and therefore how easily the laser can target them. So the way we treat leg veins is through using the GentleMax Pro 1064 nanometer wavelength again. That's really, really strongly absorbed to and attracted by, absorbed by and attracted to hemoglobin. So the oxyhemoglobin within those little blood vessels is what absorbs the laser energy. And once it's absorbed, it converts to physical heat. So we're just heating up and thermally coagulating those that blood in those little vessels, and again, coagulating and sort of sticking those vessels to themselves, and the body can no longer get blood through them, so it bypasses and the blood supply goes deeper within the skin again. So we shut down those vessels that are just very superficial. A normal clinical endpoint at the time of treatment, an optical endpoint, is that we see blanching when we treat. It can be really quite a profound result at the time of treatment, but they can be tricky. It's just a matter of gaining your confidence and experience in treating these kind of vessels. So a normal clinical endpoint is that a lot of them will blanch and disappear. Some of them may go a dark purple colour. And after about 5 minutes or so, or probably 2 minutes actually, as you're moving on, just slowly and carefully placing your spots, one spot after the other. We never overlap spots with the vascular treatments and never go back and treat again. Where you know you've already treated. So after you've moved along for a couple of minutes and you're still treating, you'll look back on those vessels that you treated initially, and they have what we call a cat scratch reaction. So it's just really, really localized edema. So it looks very much like just a tiny little cat's nail is scratched. So it's sort of that white bordered, red raised scratch-like reaction, and that's a terrific clinical endpoint. If I see that, I'm very confident that plenty of that laser energy has been absorbed by those vessels. The reason people have leg vessels, often they may have underlying varicose veins or vascular issues in their legs, and we obviously can't do anything about that. So some vessels, if you can see an underlying, you feel like there's really a feeder vessel there, we're not going to achieve a huge amount of outcome for them, because we will shut down those little superficial vessels, but then their body can so easily and quickly bring more up, because that vessel that was feeding all of those little superficial ones is still there. So in some cases, it's best to refer a client off to a sclerotherapist before they seek laser treatment. They may need to have varicose veins stripped or the deeper vessels injected or something before we can laser the superficial vessels. So always sort of have a good look at the whole area. And it's just a genetic thing. Sometimes it can be if they've had a job role where they've been on their feet for long periods of time or something, they might have found that their veins have got more and more pronounced, or going through pregnancy can worsen the condition as well, obviously. So there's various reasons why they're there, and there's just so many varying presentations. So just work with what you're dealing with that particular client. Before you do any treatments, obviously in the initial consultation stage, just check that they're not on blood thinning medication. If they are, they need to stop taking it if possible for a week or so before treatment and afterwards as well, because it would compromise the results. And if they're on any photosensitizing medication or have any sort of precautionary conditions, like for example, if someone had diabetes with reduced healing capabilities, I'd be very reluctant to perform a leg vessel treatment because the risks are of too much thermal accumulation in that skin, and the ultimate adverse outcome would be ulceration because we've thermally damaged that skin too much and created a wound that the body then, that tissue then breaks down, so we've caused an ulcer. And if someone had diabetes, that would be a really serious outcome and difficult to resolve. So always sort of look for other conditions during the initial consultation. The client expectations are it's described to them that there will likely be some bruising. That's really, really normal, just as some of those little vessels rupture, and that's fine. That's not a problem, but it can take weeks to resolve. So just let them know that the bruising may be there, and it may look fairly extensive depending on the treatment, but it will break down. Their body, the little macrophages again in their bloodstream, they'll come along and just remove those little bits of blood that are scattered throughout the tissue there in that bruising. And the client needs to just have a quiet couple of days after a treatment. They don't have to rest in bed with their legs elevated or anything, but they just have to take it easy. So no big, no really lengthy walks or high intensity sport, or no really, really hot environments. So saunas or spas or even a really hot shower or bath wouldn't be ideal because it'd be bringing a flow of blood through the legs, and those vessels are still there. They could be reinflated by the body if the body decided to. So until we know, sort of after about 48 hours, the body has completely circumnavigated those vessels that we've coagulated. But until that point, the body can reinflate them and put them back in use in the circulatory system. So it'd be best if the client could avoid a rush of blood to the treated area in that time. Aftercare is just a bit of aloe vera gel and a little bit of cooling if needed. Most people find it feels quite fine afterwards, just a little bit tingly, a little bit itchy, just because there's a bit of a histamine response in the body to it. So a little bit of localised swelling and reaction that way. So they just a bit of cooling if needed. And obviously with any of these treatments, sun exposure, as always, is really important. So just check that the client, don't treat if there's been a lot of sun exposure in that area, wait until that's faded, and just ensure that the client will be sun protective on that area moving forward while we're treating with laser. Another quick point that's worth mentioning with leg vessels is that the higher up the leg, the better the outcome in lots of cases, or sort of the easier it is to achieve a good outcome because those vessels are just higher up, so there's less of a gravity impact on the dilation of those vessels. So vessels really low on the leg, and actually pre-tibial vessels, so vessels running along the front of the lower legs, they can be really stubborn to get rid of. It's almost like as soon as we shut them down, the body, just the gravity of the blood flow as the client's walking along, can reinflate them a bit, so redilate them. So bring blood back through the area that the vessel that we've just tried to shut down. So if a client's coming in with pre-tibial or lower leg vessels, just be really thorough in your consultation about managing expectations. Just say they can be tricky, and it may require a few sessions, and the exact percentage of clearance is really difficult to predict. Thanks.